Hi, I'm Tony Momberger with Follow Our Courts, and we are in San Bernardino today with Bill Shapiro. Do you prefer William or Bill?
I'm Bill.
Bill Shapiro. He's an attorney. We're going to hear his stories. We are sitting in, it's a triple-digit day, and we're in the warmth, but it's so worth it, and we'll show you around this room. Can we start with this room? I'm sitting here with Corvettes and a Chevelle and some super stock. What do we got? There's a Camaro and
Nova El Caminos and vans and El Camino. You know, there's a lot of, I like classic cars. And the story of this really starts out where years ago I had a classic car. I wanted to have the car I used to race as a kid. So I bought that Chevelle and started working on it and did a ground up, reconstruction. Then I bought another car. And then another car, and then I had a place here in town where I could keep the cars. And then Frank Schnitz, who's a great friend of mine who does real estate, happened to come across Pinky Breyer's building. Pinky had just passed. She's a legend in our Inland Empire as a pilot. She was kind of our version of the Amelia Earhart. And she had the San Bernardino Airport, and that's where this building is situated. This was the San Bernardino Airport. So I renovated it and renovated the inside for the office area. And there's actually a condo upstairs where I renovated that. So it served everything that I needed. And in this has been a work in progress where I started with one thing, and we created a situation which is kind of a little, fun zone for me and a lot of friends, a lot of colleagues.
I was about to use the word fun zone. Yes, this is absolutely a fun zone.
Well, it is. And then what happened was Court Street West, which was a classic bar here in town when I was a young lawyer in the late 70s and the 80s. So what happened was I got a hold of the owners and I tracked down the glass from the Court Street West bar. Oh, wow. It closed in 1992. I tracked down the glass and got the glass, and I had it mounted, and I created a bar here in what I call the garage, which is now a version of Court Street. I got the old Court Street sign, wow, which is up there, and I put a bar in here, and we recently had a 30-year reunion of all the old dogs from Court Street who ran around Court Street in the late 70s and the early 80s, and our hairs are a little grayer, and we're a little dumpier, and you know how that goes, but it was a lot of fun.
I understand you're in a band.
I am in a band. I don't play as much as I did, but I played a lot of country rock in Las Vegas years ago in the early 2000s, late 90s. And I'm still very active in music. It's a huge passion of mine. My instruments are mainly pedal steel guitar and banjo.
And you're an athlete you were originally, we were talking before the cameras rolled.
Yeah.
You majored in PE and you wanted to be a coach.
I did. I started, I took a long road to get through Chaffee College, which was our local school. I graduated Chaffee High School in 1969 and went up to play some ball at Chaffee College. And I took a long road. I was one of those guys I was not too interested in college in those days. I got sidetracked into racing cars. So I ended up racing cars, and I was back in Indianapolis after getting my doors blown off by a young kid from Phoenix. And I said to myself, in Indianapolis, I'm done. I had spent so much money and so much time. I said, I'm going to go back to college. But I was in college, but I never went. So I decided to go back. And I finished up Chaffee. It was great. Went down to Cal State Fullerton, did great. I majored in physical education, which I thought was phenomenal. I wanted to be a coach. I got my teacher credential, and I was often running, so to speak.
Yeah.
Then I got sidetracked.
And now you're an attorney. You are a lawyer.
I'm a lawyer.
Let's get to the meat of it. You have stories. I want to start with Mariah Carey. Did you sue Mariah Carey?
Well, I did. There was a good friend of mine who knew I was very involved in music, and obviously as a lawyer, he knew I was involved. He had a client in Orange County who had written a song, and this guy was telling me that he thought Mariah Carey stole the song, which of course at first blush you go, sure. Now this is back in the day where Mariah Carey just blew up. And the song was theoretically taken in 94, 95. So it was not like Mariah Carey today. So I listened to the song, and I listened to her song, and there's unquestionably, it's very, very similar. But there's only 7 notes. That was her defense. There's only 7 notes in the scale. But I found her very interesting. The most interesting part of the deposition is when she went to illustrate something musically, and she would break into song.
Oh.
She's an unbelievably great singer. I mean, and when you're hearing her live in a deposition, it's incredible. Yeah, I kept the whole file. I mean, it's a memorable file. We ended up getting the case settled just before we were going to do the trial before Court TV. Ironically, we're here in federal court in Los Angeles.
Had an impact on you when she was musical in the trial. In the case, I think you should take your guitar to court and sing your opening statements. And just imagine how well received you would be by the jury.
It's a little bit different for me. I prefer using whatever skills I may have. I prefer just being a lawyer, and I keep to that end. I keep my musical interests separate. Although there have been times in my earlier days where I've been in trial and I was playing a club, and I've had jurors come into the club.
Oh.
And they're looking at me, not being able to recognize.
Yeah.
They didn't put it together, and until the end when I mentioned it to them after the trial. But it's had some interesting intersections, I'll tell you.
Nice. Who prevailed in that trial?
Well, we settled the case, so I guess I can say I won it because she paid a substantial amount of money. As the evidence got laid out, the depots kept getting better. I was back in New York on a deposition because the only real issue, similarity of song, was not at all an issue. There's no doubt. The only issue is how she would have gotten a hold of it.
Oh.
How did she get the song to steal it, so to speak?
Yeah.
And so what I did was I found a backup singer, and I was deposing John Bolton's backup singers and all these backup singers all over the country, and finally found one in New York. And he was out here to do the Arsenio Hall show with Mariah Carey, and my client's agent gave him a tape of her song. And his testimony was that they used to exchange tapes for ideas, and he would use some tapes that he had laying around to give her ideas on. Once that came out, then I had the link up, and that was what pretty much put the case to rest.
Wow.
And then what happened was, it was interesting because Mariah Carey had called, her lawyer calls me up and says, Mariah wants to meet your client in person without lawyers, which is really, that's really kind of outlandish.
Yeah.
Anyway, I told my client about it, and she said, sure, I'll meet her. And they met. We all met at the Beverly Hills Hotel. They went into a different room, stayed for about an hour and a half. They talked. I did not want Mariah Carey to convince my client to drop anything.
Yeah.
Because I had worked for years on a strong case. They both came out crying.
Oh.
And they did not come to any agreements. And we settled the case, like I said, soon thereafter.
Was that what she was trying to do? Come to an agreement with her?
I don't know. She told me she told me they did. She did not pressure her. I mean, it was not a deal where I have any disparaging remarks about what Mariah Carey was doing or wanted to do. She wanted to get to know my client. I think, of course, she wanted to influence her because by then Mariah Carey was a superstar.
Sure.
By then.
Yeah, I imagine. How long did this trial take, or how long did the
case took several years. It was probably close to 2.5 years to develop to get to trial.
Yeah, so she's rising in fame and popularity.
Oh, she was.
At the same time.
Was huge. She was just huge. She still is huge. I mean, and she's what a talent, right? I mean, just because you sue somebody, people have the notion that when you sue someone, you must hate them. And that's just not the case in any of the cases. Nice people make mistakes. Now, in that case, I didn't think it was a mistake.
But that's an important thing you say. When you sue somebody, they think you hate them, but it's...
A lot of people do. Fortunately, a lot of defendants, I handle cases on behalf of plaintiff victims who have been really catastrophically and seriously hurt. A lot of people understand that in representing these people, I'm going to do a job for them, and I am going to do a job for them. And if they choose to believe that I hate them or don't like them, they're wrong, because sometimes it comes down to a silly mistake. Sometimes it comes down to a conscious mistake or a conscious conduct. But I don't have any ill will or bad feelings toward the people who I have actions against. And I'll let them, if they choose to believe that, I'll let them believe that.
I heard you speak at an event once on the importance of civility in court and how to listen to people, how to be respectful, how to keep kindness part of it. I was very pleased with the things you said. It was really nice.
I think it's hugely important in today's world of litigation. Everybody thinks that lawyers, trial lawyers in particular, are here to beat their chest and just pound somebody in a disrespectful manner, point their fingers, all those things. Yeah, I think just the opposite. In other words, I think the more persuasive lawyer and the more effective lawyer is the lawyer who can prove a case through being demonstrative in the evidence in a manner in which people like you. I tell a lot of clients, if the jurors don't like you, they won't want to help you. Yeah. And I just think that's human nature. Again, not anything particularly, astute, but I just believe that people like nice people. And I think if lawyers can be a little nicer. Now, don't get me mixed up here now. Please don't get me mixed up with being weak. And I tell a lot of lawyers, a lot of young lawyers, don't get civility and being cordial mixed up with being weak.
Right.
Don't be weak.
Sure, you're not trying to defer to.
There's a way to do a job, and I think the lawyers that come off beating their chest, and then when they lose to someone who, or they encounter someone who is getting the job done in a civil manner, I hope to rub off on that person, because those people have rubbed off on me, my greatest mentors. My greatest mentor of all time, Tino Garza, who's our local lawyer here in town.
Just passed.
He just passed, yeah. He proved to me that civility and being cordial and cooperative can rub off. I mean, I've seen it.
Can you tell me about your case involving RoundUp?
The RoundUp case was I was at, started off live and ended up going virtual because everyone in that case seemed to get sick, including the clerks, the defense counsel, some jurors. We were happy we didn't get sick, but we ended up going virtual. So we had set up a studio in Beverly Hills. So it's a San Bernardino case that I'm trying in a studio in Beverly Hills. But it was interesting. I learned a lot of science about RoundUp and about non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. They have probably around 4,000 RoundUp cases. Because what happens is these law firms that handle these mass torts, they have just a gigantic number of them, and what they'll do is they'll either go into an MDL or a multi-district litigation, or they'll go into a class action. These cases were decidedly to be tried as single standing cases. So they called me up, would you help us try this case? I said, sure. And of course, it was literally about 2 weeks before the trial started when I was brought in. So I had a lot of catch-up ball to do.
Yeah.
Something we can do. And we started trial. We thought it would be around 3 weeks. It ended up being 5 months. And the 5 months is because of all the things that went on with the pandemic. People got sick, as I mentioned. Some of the defense lawyers got sick. There was two massive teams on both sides.
So this trial gets underway in person and as normal.
Yeah, we picked a jury, normal trial in live open court. Everything was a standard case, then all of a sudden, one by one, people started getting ill with COVID. And the judge had to make a call. And by now we're into the case, we're into the case several weeks.
And this is the beginning of COVID, right? This wasn't while it was bouncing around.
This was we got underway July of 21. So we're in the thick of COVID. Okay, we're in the thick of it. Everyone's starting to get a little optimistic, but man, it's popping up everywhere. So when all the folks got sick, the judge had to make a call, either mistry the case, and we did all this for naught. Mm-hmm. And the judge spoke to us about going remote. I wasn't a big fan of it, but we ended up doing it. We had to purchase computers for every one of the jurors. We had to purchase headsets for the jurors. We had to stop the trial to give the jurors training on how to use Zoom, how to use the laptops and the software. We had to create, I say we, the judge, under his direction, had to direct our court assistant to be able to watch the screen to make certain, because of the different jurors having different bandwidth. I didn't know that much about bandwidth. So all of a sudden, we have jurors just popping off. So somebody's got to be watching to make sure everyone's still there, because when you have that many jurors plus alternates on a screen, it's difficult. Anyway, you can imagine, and my hat's off to Judge Ochoa for navigating those streams, because as he would plug up one leak, another one would come up.
Can we give the judge's full name for the...
Gilbert Ochoa, Judge Gilbert Ochoa.
With San Bernardino Superior.
Yes. He did a fantastic job in getting all the parties, keeping them organized and keeping the trial going. But
did they have to come up with new policy?
Well, that would be kind of what I'm talking about. There's no policy, so we had to agree. Both sides constantly had to agree to certain policy, and led by the court. So yeah, we were navigating fresh waters, different waters, and we were doing it with these laptops, and we had to create studios. It was different. Now, as time goes on, because I want you to know, remote trials are here to stay. Not that I like them, and I'm in a fan but remote is here to stay. The Zoom platform and platforms similar to Zoom and Blue Jeans and the like, those are platforms that are going to continue to be going on. The trial, getting back to the trial itself, the trial to me was a bit frustrating because you can't look somebody, as you mentioned, in the eye. You don't have the presence that you have. Lawyers, trial lawyers, you want to be in front of the jurors. You want to be able to see and observe immediately what's as opposed to looking at a flat screen. I had a large panel to look at, but still, it's not the same.
It's not the same, and you can't get a sense of their energy. I mean, I am imagining,
right, as
somebody who's not in the legal industry, I'm imagining that a lot of outcomes may be influenced.
You never know. And one thing in law, you never know about the outcome on a difficult case. The science of the case was tricky. We had some interesting facts that came up about clients. So, I mean, you never know. The case ultimately went to a defense verdict. What happened was, though, because of the case and others similarly situated amongst these 4,000, we were able to get the 4,000 cases resolved, which was very good for the mass amount of clients. And we settled it as a group, including the case that we represented this lady for. She was included in the entire or will be in the entire settlement. It's still going on.
What was she alleging?
Well, she was alleging she received she got a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma as a result of the use of RoundUp. Okay. There's some supporting science. Not some, there's ample supporting science from IARC, and there's other scientific data that links the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma with the use of RoundUp. And that's why Now, I'm not an advertising lawyer, but I can't help but listen to the radio and you hear all the ads about RoundUp and all that. I'm not engaged in any of that, but I'm just letting you know that there are links between RoundUp and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. In the trial that we had, the jurors decided that it was not caused, but I think it was also linked that they believed that she wasn't exposed that much to cause the cancer. So there's any variety of things. And then people, some of the team were faulting the remote nature of the trial. I'm not going to go there. I'm not an excuse guy.
The jury would have had to also deliberate on TV, on their computer monitors, right?
No, actually, I don't mean to cut you off.
Oh, yeah.
We started live, and then what we did was we got everyone healthy.
Oh.
And then we resumed after 4 months. We resumed live. So we had closing arguments live, and we had deliberations live. But we had interesting things. Some jurors wanted the doors open because of ventilation. So we had to readjust where everyone was seated. In fact, in this trial I tried in April, the same thing happened. The jurors wanted more ventilation. It's been interesting.
Because of the virus, right? You're not just saying they were warm.
Oh no, it's because of COVID. The whole and the bottom line is that the trial is what it was, but it was a window of the future. We are going to have more sophisticated softwares and more sophisticated protocols to handle jury trials remotely. And I think we're on the road to having almost like hologram type trials where you see Michael Jackson singing with Nat King Cole.
Virtual reality, yeah.
I think you're going to see in the future, I think you'll see trials that are that virtually realistic. And to that vein, I think we can have some success with it because there's tremendous convenience with we had experts in Switzerland, we had experts in Germany. So we had remote testimony, and that works well. Even in a live trial, though, this trial I recently tried, we had experts in other parts of the country, and the expert's head is on a screen that is 7 feet wide. Mm-hmm. So you're really seeing them. So I like that. I mean, there's aspects that I like. Also depositions. And,
sure.
I mean, some of the things are positive.
How long have you been a lawyer in San Bernardino?
I've been here in San Bernardino my entire career. I came here as a law clerk in 75. I passed the bar in 78, and I've been here ever since.
So you've seen technology. You've seen the changes, right? The evolution of the court procedures.
Hugely.
Over a long period.
Yeah, huge changes. And I'll tell you one thing. People say to me, why do you stay in San Bernardino? Why do you practice in San Bernardino? Why don't you come to LA or go to Orange County They don't get it. And I have the universal comment to them is, why don't you come out to San Bernardino? Because you would find that the bench and the bar are, I think, as good as it gets. Okay, you talk about civility and credibility. I think we have a strong command on it. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm biased. Sure, I'm biased, and but I really believe that. I think if this is watched in 20, 30 years, I'm hoping that the young lawyers who replace me and everybody like me maintain that collegiality and that uniqueness that the Inland Empire has, and that other people see, by the way. People in LA, they come out, they use my office all the time. Orange County, it's a popular place.
Sure it is.
And so what they do is they practice and they try these cases before our courts. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we're losing a lot of our great judges because these were lawyers with me, and now they were judges. They're doing it 20 years, and they're retiring.
Yeah.
And I'm just hopeful that our governor's office replaces and assigns and appoints with great judges that like what we have. But the bottom line is, I think in 20 years, we're going to be okay in the Inland Empire from a legal standpoint, as long as the vibe stays the same, and the collegiality stays the same.
Bill, I really enjoyed your stories today about your time in San Bernardino and your career. Thank you for sitting with us.
Hey, well, thank you for coming, and you're welcome back anytime. If I can do anything for you, let me know.